thank you for making the time to join us for this webinar, where we'll discuss the opportunities and challenges of using biometric IDs for onboarding and take a peek into the future of IDV. Just a few housekeeping things. If you're having any trouble with the audio, please try dialing in on the numbers provided in the invitation. Please feel free to submit your questions live during our presentation in the chat, and we'll address them in the Q&A at the end, or our team will address them as we go. This webinar is being recorded, and we will be mailing out the link over the next few days. There will be three of us presenting today: me, Henry Pattishman, Executive VP of Identity Verification Solutions at Regular. Now let me introduce my co-presenters for today's webinar. Pascal Tavernier, Identity and Access Management Architect, Executive Director at UBS. Pascal, could you please say a few words about your background in IDV implementation?
Sure. Thank you, Henry. My passion is information security and biometric authentication to provide the best user experience at a high security level. I've designed and built such an IDV solution, a self-service digital client onboarding solution, and that is operational now for 1.5 years. So we have onboarded thousands of clients with that solution, and I'm happy to share my lessons learned with you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pascal. And our other presenter today is Dimitri. He's Head of Mobile and Web Development at Regular. Dima, please tell us what your responsibilities are in IDV projects, solutions, and implementations.
Yeah, thank you, Henry, and hello, everyone. I am a technical person at Regular who is responsible for development of mobile and web products. And of course, I'm very glad to support integration of our products into customers' IDV solutions. And I am happy to be here today. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dimitri. Now, let's align on what we call biometric identity documents. Since 1980, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, which is part of the UN, has been standardizing travel documents for international interoperability. The ICAO Doc 9303 machine-readable travel document specifies the technical details, including printing and physical details. Further, it also specifies the details of the embedded chip. This is called the Electronic Machine-Readable Travel Document, or EMRTD, and may carry the symbol displayed on this slide. The EMRTD chip symbol now appears on many passports, identity cards, and residence permits that have an embedded contactless EMRTD near-field communication, or NFC chip. The terms for this include e-passport, biometric passport, electronic identity card, EID2, or biometric identity card. In some countries, like the UK, a residence permit with the EMRTD chip is called the biometric residence permit. More than 170 countries and territories around the world are now issuing biometric documents and taking steps to phase out traditional documents. It's important to note that even though 75% of countries have started issuing biometric documents, there are very few statistics available on the split between traditional documents and biometric documents that are currently in use. From past experience, these types of initiatives tend to have quite a long tail and may take many years to completely switch over. At Regular, our technologies currently cover biometric documents of 174 countries and territories, and we actively add new ones as they become available. On the slide, you can see that the number of countries is not the same with the number of documents. This is due to the fact that in each country, there are from 1 to 65 different document types, and Regular is actively monitoring for addition of new ones. At the same time, we support over 13,000 traditional documents, which in 25% of countries remain the only alternative for personal identification within the country and abroad. Pascal, could you please share the penetration rate of biometric passports in Switzerland?
Yeah, sure, Henry. So in Switzerland, over 95% of the populations are citizens from countries that do issue biometric passports for more than 10 years. That means they all have biometric passports. We also see lots of foreigners from the European Union that do not have a passport, but they do have a national ID card, and most of these national ID cards are biometric too. So in summary, the coverage in Switzerland and also in the European Union is very high. So that means it's excellent conditions to introduce a self-service solution.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pascal. We all understand why the use of biometric documents for remote verification is growing over traditional documents. They're much more secure and difficult to fake. That's because the RFID chip holds data that can be read and verified with NFC-enabled smartphones and specialized IDV software. This makes counterfeiting electronic documents a more difficult task. Another important feature of biometric documents is that personal information is duplicated in different parts of the document, including the RFID chip. So it's easy to identify discrepancies during document data cross-checks. Also, the RFID chip is digitally signed by the issuing authority, and systems are able to check to make sure that the digital signature matches the document. Traditional documents are less protected and therefore easier for fraudsters to imitate, and more difficult for businesses to identify without sophisticated solutions. For example, personal data is much easier to alter. Photos can be changed with face morphing and replaced. Authenticity checks are difficult with the naked eye and often require the use of forensic devices, something that we know well at Regular, as we are one of the world's leading manufacturers of these forensic devices. All this increases fraud risks in remote onboarding scenarios when using traditional documents. Now that we're all on the same page with biometric documents, let's talk about online services where businesses may choose to accept biometric passports only. There are really two key factors that determine this: self-service and e-signature. And usually the choice is defined by industry or local regulators. Each country may have their own requirements, but the general approach is more or less the same. This applies to numerous industries and use cases within these industries, including government, insurance, telecommunications, and of course, banking and finance. Pascal, based on your experience, can you please delve a little deeper into the banking and finance sector and the applicability of biometric passports for IDV?
Yeah, sure, Henry. In simple terms, for some of the contracts, like credit contracts or mortgages, a qualified electronic signature is required, which is then based on the highest level of identity assurance. And in Switzerland and in the European Union, the regulator requires a biometric identity document if you want to provide a self-service identity proving solution for prospects. And that means biometric identity documents are in fact the enabler to automate these identity proving and onboarding processes for clients if you want to have a 24 hours onboarding process.
Thanks, Pascal. From the business perspective, we see some obvious pros and cons of limiting self-service to biometric IDs only. Amongst positive arguments are enhanced security and easier compliance, a smooth customer experience, and potentially what businesses initially like the most is the money saving by excluding manual work of verification of traditional passports. Speaking of cons, first of all, potential revenue losses due to loss of potential customers who wanted to use self-service but were declined due to use of a traditional passport. This may create a negative experience and influence the bank's reputation and customer loyalty in general. Excluding traditional documents from remote onboarding may also increase costs overall, as more pressure may be placed on face-to-face agent-based onboarding. Pascal, you mentioned that in one of the projects you were leading, there was a business decision to limit the self-service by biometric documents only. Could you please tell us why and how banks make such decisions, and what are the consequences, both positive and negative?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's actually very simple. At the end of the day, it's all about conversion rate for the business. And that means your onboarding process must be intuitive and it must be fast. A self-service onboarding process is convenient for prospects. They can do it from anywhere, anytime. Prospects don't want to go through a lengthy video call. They don't have the patience for that. That's my experience. They want to do it when it suits them. And then they also expect some kind of Google, Apple onboarding experience. So again, it must be intuitive, it must be fast. And the self-service process is also way more cost efficient than a video onboarding call. So in summary, It's about the user experience and the cost for the onboarding.
Thanks, Pascal. And do you still cater for traditional identity documents?
Yes, we do process still traditional identity documents, and for that, as an alternative, we offer a video onboarding call, which takes about 3 to 4 times more time than a self-service solution.
Fantastic. That makes perfect sense. That much of the use case decision is driven by specific regulations of the regulators of each industry. It's also clear that in most cases, there has to be at least a plan B to allow to cater for traditional documents. Interestingly, if you want to cater for customers from some particular countries like India, which represents almost 18% of the world's population and does not yet have biometric passports for the general population. Also, countries like the USA, where more than half of the citizens do not have biometric documents or passports and rely on traditional documents like driver's licenses for identification. So something to keep in mind. Now that we understand why businesses prefer dealing with biometric documents, let's look at the most popular use case, remote onboarding in banking. Pascal, I know you have strong experience in design and implementation of remote onboarding processes. Could you please tell us about a typical remote onboarding process in a bank and what challenges are faced with identity verification at each step of the process?
Yeah, sure. So the typical process is visualized here. So it starts basically the same process at the airport when you go through the e-passport gate. So we scan the machine-readable zones at the first page of the passport with the mobile phone camera. The next step is to read the data, the digitally signed data from the chip using NFC. Then in the meantime, we're going through some knowledge, know your client questions. And at the end of the process, we do the automated identity verification by taking a video selfie and doing liveness detection to ensure that it's a live person and not a mask or a deep fake. And we do face comparison. So that's basically the process. There are a few key architecture principles that need to be considered that, from my experience, are very, very important. And they're listed here. So we start with the zero trust model for the user mobile device. And that means you can't trust that mobile device. It could be compromised. That means you have to ensure that all the decisions you do are not, you don't do these decisions on the mobile phone, but on a trusted backend. Then you need to enforce certain security controls, like you check for whether the device is rooted or jailbroken or in developer mode. So in summary, the mobile device is only used to collect data, and that as listed here. And then everything is passed to a trusted backend to do the verification of the data. And that means the key architecture principles for the backend are any processing and storing of data must happen in a trusted backend environment. That does include document validation, comparing the faces, doing liveness detection, presence, that must happen in a trusted environment. And when you design such a solution, you have to design it secure by design to ensure that you have the right controls for any cybersecurity threats. Then you also need to consider that you want to design or provide that solution for various consumers, various mobile apps and business workflows. So you have to design it as a service right from the start with an API that can be consumed accordingly. And then my recommendation is go cloud native and use the technologies that make that solution secure and highly scalable.
Thanks, Pascal. This is really insightful and great to understand the details of the process. You mentioned various consumers for this service, not just onboarding. Can you please provide some examples?
Yeah, sure, Henry. So the potential to automate and digitize business processes with the same technology is enormous. We talked about digital client onboarding, but then once you have them users onboarded to biometric authentication, you can use the same technology for re-identification For example, when you want to renew digital signatures every 3 years, that's, for example, in Switzerland, in the European Union, you need to do a re-identification every 3 years. Once you have your clients onboarded to biometric authentication, or you offer that identity proving service with biometric documents, you can also use that for re-identification and automate that process. That means users will no longer be required to sign physically. You don't have to send around paper and contracts. Then you can also use it, which what happened quite often is personal data changes. That means updates on names. Any personal data changes can be automated with this remote identity proving process. And the use case that from a cost perspective is very attractive is account recovery. So for example, if you need to reinstall your mobile banking app, you can use that biometric technology for account recovery. So users can do that 7-24 hours. All they need is the identity document and doing the biometric authentication. You can also use it for high-risk business transaction. That means you can ask for step-up authentication, doing liveness detection, face comparison. So there are various opportunities to use the same technology for business to digitize your processes.
That's great. Quite a few different use cases, which is fantastic. Can you cover some of the key factors for conversion rate success?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important one is the user guidance. And as I said before, it's all about having an intuitive and a user-friendly process. So my lesson learned is that most prospects and users, they drop out during the scanning of the identity documents for various reasons, but mainly it's not a very intuitive process, and most prospects haven't done that before, scanning the first passport page and then scanning the biometric passport with the NFC chip, holding it onto the document. That is not intuitive. And that means it's very important that you provide accurate user guidance, animated user guidance, so users can see with a short movie how they need to do that and how they need to hold the document and the mobile phone. That's really key for the success. Then in that context of providing a user-friendly process, if they do something wrong, then you need to provide accurate context-based help, not like, oh, something went wrong, but you need to give them crystal clear, again, animated instructions saying this is what went wrong. For example, if they try to scan in with direct light and there is glare on the passport, or if they try to scan it in low light conditions, that means you need to give them very specific hints on how they can improve the scanning process. Then last but not least, it's actually an obvious one, but that's a lesson learned, eligibility for a process. So my recommendation is evaluate the eligibility right at the start of the process. That means, is the identity document eligible for self-service? I mean, if you do that later in the process, then prospects get frustrated when you tell them, they go through the whole process, and at the end you tell them, oh, sorry, your document is not eligible. So you should design that process to check right at the start whether they can go through a self-service or whether they need to go through a video call, or eventually if they need to go to a branch.
Thanks, Pascal. As always, conversion rate is the key in this game. And that's some great insights to how to get the right results. Can you please talk a little bit about the evaluation criteria for selecting the right partner for this type of solution?
Sure. Yeah, so first, obviously, you need to ensure that the vendor has the right support of the identity documents in scope, and that means biometric passports and national IDs. You need to ensure that the solution has the right user guidance or a default user guidance that you can leverage, and that you have the options to customize the UIs to your requirements. your requirements regarding the workflow or regarding colors and logos, etc. And also, as mentioned before, you need to ensure that you can react on specific error events, and that means it needs the flexibility to react on error handling. Then it's about the scanning and OCR performance. There are big differences, I can tell you that. So that means you need to ensure that the solution does also works on older entry-level mobile phones, and it works reliable in poor light conditions or when there is glare, again, in combination with the error handling. Then you should ensure that the solution has two components. So there's the mobile part that does collect information, scanning, NFC scanning, and then there's the server side. So as I said before, all the decision making must happen in a trusted backend. That means the solution should support that by having server-side components or server-side verification. Then all the biometrics checks, obviously, it needs to support a robust and secure liveness detection that does cover for deepfakes and masks and videos. Then the face match and also face search. That means you can identify a person just based on scanning the face. Then there's the on-premise versus software as a service. There you need to consider, if you go for a software as a service, you need to ensure that the vendor does fulfill all the regulatory requirements and probably your business risk appetite regarding data privacy and data protection aspects. You should also consider, especially if you have like a mobile banking app, then the size of the SDK could become a problem. So you need to ensure that you know the size of the SDK and it does not impact your solution, or that you can customize the size of the SDK by reducing the scope of the document. Also very important lesson learned, check out the developer documentation and ask your developers if they would be happy to work with that vendor, looking at the documentation. I can say that Regular has done a very good job here with developer documentation and also code samples for customization and how they support you with customization. And then a very important one, and we will talk about that later on, is the support for artificial testing documents. You have to deal with a lot of different countries with the different layout and different colors and different surface of the passport, and for that also different error conditions, and for that you will need artificial testing documents. So in summary, focus on user guidance and error handling for document scanning, and also ensure that the solution supports a zero trust model.
Great, thanks Pascal. That's some very good insights and recommendations. And this actually leads us nicely into the required technologies. Dima, please tell us in a bit more detail about the technologies Pascal mentioned and how they work.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. As an ADV vendor, we always address customer requirements when developing technologies and products. And here on the slide, we combine the key features of an ADV solution in 3 groups. The first group contains features developed to detect and prevent fraud, like our document template database, which contains more than 13,000 items. Authenticity control, which advanced security checks, document liveness detection, cross-checks between the same data in different security elements of the documents, and biometric checks, including liveness detection, as a base for fraud detection in our products. And for customers with strong security requirements, we offer extra checks of RFID chips on the server side. I will cover this in details on the next slides, as it is an important part of the biometric passport verification. The next set of features are about customer experience. As Pascal mentioned before, conversion rate is one of the key performance indicators of the self-service onboarding. So usability is crucial for successful deployment of an ADV solution.
And we offer an intuitive user interface with inbuilt user guidance and advanced document capture and image quality assessment for easier self-service. Also, we provide automatic document type detection to shorten the user path. And of course, we offer products with the same functionality and user interface on all platforms, mobile, web, and desktop. Last but not least are features related to implementing and integrating our products into customer system. We offer flexible user experience and user interface customization and provide detailed developer documentation. Our products are all on premises, which allow customer to deploy an IDV system in their own infrastructure. And a tailored testing service is also important for a large enterprise project, and we will talk about these in details a little bit later. Now I will tell you about an additional security checks that we offer to our customers for implementing onboarding with biometric documents. When an end customer uses a mobile device for self-service to read data from RFID chips, it's not enough just to verify this data on the mobile device from an RFID chip itself. It's not 100% secure because this risk of verification results being modified by fraudsters directly on the same device. In the Zero Trust Mobile approach, Regular adds another layer of protection against such fraud with complete server-side verification of electronic identity documents that are scanned via mobile phone with NFC technology. A server in a customer's secure perimeter allows re-verifying the chip in its authentication session to ensure that the information in the physical ID is trustworthy and the chip is not cloned or its data manipulated. Thus, when electronic documents processed on a mobile device, the server can be an integral part of NFC verification. It immediately reprocesses RFID mobile session running passive, active, and/or chip authentication on the backend and ensure trustworthy and fraud-free results of NFC verification. Also, the results of every NFC verification session can be stored on a server, so it's possible to reprocess them afterwards if required. All this is done strictly on the client's premises, and Regulars gets no access to any data. All this allows making self-service onboarding with biometric documents secure and fraud-resistant. But anyway, the more checks you apply, the more confident you can be about document authenticity. Only a combination of checks can ensure you don't let a fraud slip by. Regular has extensive knowledge of what security elements should look like, based not only on brand new samples, but also on real-life, even freight documents, so that all possible IDs can be easily verified and even the most sophisticated fraud can be promptly detected.
Thank you, Dima. Hope this overview will help our webinar participants in understanding the technologies and evaluating IDV solutions. Pascal, when you were talking about evaluation criteria, you mentioned support for artificial testing documents. Could you please explain why this is important and why it's difficult for businesses to do this on their own?
Yeah, sure. Well, you must support over 100 countries. If you want to support biometric identity documents, you won't have these passports available from your staff or project member. And you actually don't want or you can't use real passports in an engineering or a testing environment for data protection and data privacy reasons. So there's no other way than to use artificial identity documents. And these artificial identity documents, they need to have an NFC chip. And you also must test all the various error conditions, like the minimum or maximum age for a prospect for a specific products or services. You want to check if the passport is expired, if the signature validation has failed, etc., etc. For all these specific conditions, error conditions, you can't do that with real identity documents, and you don't want to use real identity documents.
Thanks, Pascal. Obviously, the challenges are quite clear. And we see that our customers do face them when they try to implement these types of processes. And actually, this is quite an interesting story where Pascal in the project that he was directing at UBS played a vital role in the development of a new service by Regular. We always listen very closely to the needs of our customers and try to assist and develop solutions wherever possible. So after a successful trial with UBS, just today, we issued a press release where we officially launched the Regular NFC Test Kit service. Dima, could you please tell us what this service is and how it helps our customers test remote onboarding with biometric passports?
Sure, Henry. Yeah. Customers' requirements drive not only product development, but these types of services as well. Our new service is aimed mostly at enterprise customers for implemented regular technologies. Depending on the company's business needs and market goals, Regular creates a test set of identity documents with authentic RFID chips personalized with the data of fictitious identities. Apart from the chip, we create a corresponding image of documents with a visual zone and MRZ without other security features, and the customer can print these pictures themselves to enable robust cross-checking and system testing. We personalize genuine RFID chips with fictitious persons, data, and record them with the help of Regular's document reader. It's important to note that Regular generates all necessary certificate chains for every chip, signs the data using those certificates, and provides them to the customer for performing passive authentication. This approach fully imitates the process of scanning real NFC chips in real IDs, which allows businesses to experience lifelike document verification when testing their IDV systems. During the process, we work closely with the customers to reproduce all potential scenarios that may occur in the process of remote identity verification and detect all potential vulnerabilities and issues. Okay, let's summarize the key features of Regular NFC Test Kit service. The first one is maximum similarity with real documents. Don't get me wrong, we do not produce fake documents, only test documents. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the testing consists of two elements: a plastic card with an NFC chip and a printed document image. Each one is clearly marked to show that it's not a real document, but they are perfectly designed for testing purposes. The next one is flexible customization. Our customers work in specific markets and know more or less what kind of documents from which countries they will need to process. That's where we step in. We know what fields the document contains and what variations are possible. We create a test document set according to our customers' use cases with the assistance of our extensive document template database, which contains more than 13,000 documents with our customers may require. Thanks to the unique combination of specialized software, hardware, and expert knowledge, Regular NFC Test Kit is a powerful tool for identifying and preventing potential problems in the IDV solution during the testing phase, ensuring system reliability. And finally, from a business perspective, I think the most important benefit is that thanks to this testing service, customer can significantly reduce time to market, accelerate the implementation process, and expedite the journey to production. Thank you, Henry.
Thanks, Dima. I guess we talked in some detail about the verification of electronic and biometric documents, and now this has already become the preferred type of identification document. So what's next? Well, the introduction of digital ID is already here and being discussed everywhere. Is this the next step, which will also someday become the main IDV method? Well, time will tell. Currently, different parties to this process are negotiating and developing regulations. Businesses need to start investing to understand how this will affect already established existing business processes. Just like any innovation, digital IDs bring with them many opportunities, but also potentially many challenges. Pascal, from your opinion, how does the digital ID, like the digital identity wallet in the EU, affect banking processes now? And what are you expecting in the nearest 3 years?
Well, the development in the EID area is very promising, and honestly, the opportunities are awesome. So I'm very excited about that. Looking at the status where we are at the moment, in some of the leading countries like Singapore, Switzerland, and the European Union countries, I believe EIDs will have a significant impact in the next few years on client onboarding and digital lifecycle management. However, realistically, we need to support both physical identity documents and electronic IDs. I believe physical identity documents will be around for more than 10 to 15 years, and that means we still need to support them.
Great. Very insightful as always. Now that we've touched on digital IDs, I'm very proud to say that we at Regular are already well on our way to supporting digital IDs within one IDV flow, together with traditional and biometric documents. So the system is well on its way. Now, for the key takeaways for today. You can limit the onboarding process to biometric passports only if the penetration of the biometric passports amongst your potential customers is high. You are ready for potential negative consequences such as profit reduction or reputational risk. And you must have a robust IDV system to ensure secure and seamless remote onboarding. It also makes sense to start planning now for the inclusion of digital IDs into existing onboarding processes. In reality, all types of documents should be supported, traditional, biometric, and digital, which makes choosing the right IDV partner crucial for success. Pascal, do you have anything to add?
No, I can just reiterate that you must support all these different identity documents, whether they're traditional. That's important. And again, I can only stress that how important it is that you have an intuitive, user-friendly process.
Fantastic. That brings us to the questions. Let's see what questions we've got in the chat and posted to us. Looks like you're the most popular one, Pascal. The questions seem to be addressed towards you. So let's start off with a couple here. Question, how much time should it take after implementation to start measuring IDV solution efficiency? For example, conversion rate.
Yeah, you should design that IDV solutions that you have all the log information to measure that right from the start. You will probably need to give yourself about 3 months, because when you release such a solution right from the start, you'll have lots of people that just trying, and that will influence your statistics. So you should probably do it goes back to normal, I would say 2 to 3 months. So you can start measuring it after around 3 months.
Okay, great. Another one for you, all really for you. How complicated was the integration of self-service to core banking system, and what challenges were there?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the design. It depends on how, whether your existing backend is already service oriented. If it's not service oriented and you have to build these interfaces, these APIs to integrate it, that can be a complex and lengthy process, especially if you have lots of legacy software components around. So yeah, it depends on your backend, the current status of your backend infrastructure.
Okay. How long does it take to add an IDV solution for banking onboarding from start to finish?
Yeah, there are various factors that are relevant here. Again, is to what I've said before, is your backend ready to integrate such an IDV solution? Realistically, between 12 and 18 months If you need to do a lot of redesign on your backend, it might take longer. It also depends on whether you're ready to use a SaaS solution or whether your components are on-prem or in the cloud. If you need to migrate them into the cloud, then that will probably add to that time. So something between 12 and 24 months.
Okay, good. Here's an interesting one. Can you share what percentage of false positives you have?
No, unfortunately, I can't share that. It's not much.
Okay, single digits?
Yeah, very, very low.
All right, we won't push you on that one. And we do have a few other questions. Actually, this is a good one. Is there a time difference between processing traditional and biometric passports?
Yeah, so it depends on your solution approach. Yes, the traditional ones would go through a video call. A video call usually takes around 10 minutes, while, well, it depends on the document. I would say 2 to 3 times longer for a traditional document. If you go through a self-service with a biometric, you should be able to do that in under 5 minutes. That means when you start the process until the process is completed and you have digitally signed the contract, that usually takes 5 minutes. For a traditional document with a video call, I would say it's around 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay. That makes perfect sense, and that sort of explains why the costs are so much higher for traditional documents when onboarding them through video calls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There are quite a few more other questions, but I'm conscious of the time, and they will all get answered in response. There will be emails going out with questions answered. So don't worry, all of those questions will be answered, but being conscious of time, I think we will move on and wrap it up. So that's pretty much all for today. We will follow you up on the unanswered questions, as I mentioned. I would like to thank my co-presenters today, Pascal and Dimitri. Thank you for presenting, and thank you to all of you for attending our webinar. Please don't hesitate to contact us after the webinar in case you have any additional questions. We'll be more than happy to assist.